Hi there, this is Corey Colonna, the Executive Director of Housing and Residential Life at Cal State Long Beach, providing yet another video just for some tips and tricks for move-in. For some, this might be the first time moving a student into a university, and others, maybe it's just the first time that they are moving a student into our university, or maybe even to be on the university campus. And so I want to provide you some tips and tricks that we have learned over the years that can make this a smooth move-in for you. So first off, limit your move-in assistance. I'm going to tell you every year, and I sort of love it, and yet I understand why it's a challenge. We'll have a family, and it'll be grandma and grandfather and great aunt and aunts and uncles and moms and dads and little brothers and little sisters that all come to move in a single student, and that's great in some ways, but at the same time, it generally means more vehicles. It generally means more people crowded into a small room, as the parents are making the bed or whatever the case is, and it just is probably unnecessary. So I try to say about 3 individuals, maybe the student and a couple others is fine. Again, we're not going to turn anyone away if they bring too many people, but I want you to think about that. Let them have that goodbye at home. And they'll have other opportunities potentially to come to campus and see where the student lives and get a little bit of sense of their experience. When students get on campus, generally we'll need one person to stay with the vehicle, not the student. The student will need to go and check in, and they will check in their residence hall. So you'll have already received some information. I also want you to check out our website where there's a little moving truck, and it's all information about move-in, about where to park. Parking is free in buildings that are near the residence halls, and so that is a nice option for people to get settled. But we say one person to stay with the vehicle, at least initially, because there's going to be sort of some prime parking close to the buildings, and we want to give other people opportunities to park in that same spot. So after that car is unloaded and things are on the way to the room, we're going to ask that person move their vehicle to a space that's a little bit further away, so they have the space available for individuals to participate and have that same advantage that you did. I also will mention you probably make more than one trip. So students get here, parents get here. We do our best to share with what's involved, what the rooms look like, what the buildings look like, and they're going to get here and they're like, oh gosh, I feel like I need underbed storage that I didn't plan for, or I really need another little shelf that I can put on my desk for makeup, whatever the case might be, things that you'll figure out. And that's fine. We expect that. But unless you're carrying something particularly heavy, when you make that second or third trip, we ask for people to park again, sort of a little bit further from the buildings to allow others to come in close. We do ask people to come close to the time that they have selected to come and move in. We pick different days for different buildings. Again, it's mostly about traffic control. If someone comes a little early, we're not going to turn you away. If someone comes a little late, we're not going to turn you away. That's not who we want to be, but it does help to just sort of move people through and keep us, being as efficient as possible with how we do things. Some other pieces. So we are a campus that is really dedicated to a high level of sustainability. So we don't provide water bottles, but moving can be warm. You're going to be carrying some things. So encourage people to bring a water bottle themselves. We will have filling stations similar to what you see here. There'll be ice and stuff underneath it to keep it cold. We'll have some paper cups, but again, if you want to bring a water bottle, there are also filling stations in the buildings. Every residence hall has at least several filling stations where students can fill up a water bottle. So just a nice way to be sustainable and something important to think about. Bring a dolly if you have one, or like one of these like sort of foldable wagon buggies to help you bring your stuff in. We do have some moving carts. We do have some moving things that can help people move in, but there's a limitation to how many of those we have. And again, we're going to move 1,600 people in a day. So we have 3,200 students total. We'll move 1,600 on the first day, and actually slightly more on the second day. And so those carts are going to be important, and people are going to be all using the same carts. And so if you can bring your own, that's great. It's also helpful. You can use it in the future, potentially when you move out. As well. Bike security. I encourage people to consider bringing a bike. I think it's a great way to get around campus. It's a great way to get around the town. There's lots of really close nearby places to shop. There's a Target that's basically right across the street from Hillside. or not very far from Hillside. There's grocery stores that are sort of the other direction that are all walkable. But if a student wants, they might want to bring a bike. Really important that they bring a good, strong bike lock. And second they're going to want to register their bike, and they can register their bike on move-in. We're going to have people from campus police available that will help students register their bike. They'll take a photo of the bike, they'll get their serial number, make and model, color, all that kind of stuff, because unfortunately bike theft is one of the most serious and most common issues of crime on campus. And it's because the bikes have to stay outside for lots of reasons. There's not room for them on the inside. And obviously, riding a bike or having a bike in, ruins our carpets and such. But having them registered and having them locked well is really important. I'm excited to share that this year the university has procured about 800 bike locks that we are going to distribute on that move-in day. We're hoping to get more, but it was the best we could do from the company that we were ordering from. So if you don't have a U-lock, like I'm showing here, we do have some, but I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know how many people bring bikes for certain, so we might run out, but this should be something you want to think about for securing a bike. I will mention later, e-bikes are not allowed on campus, and we'll talk about that later. And then bring a fans for to circulate air. So as a lot of people know, maybe a third of our buildings are air conditioned and the rest are not. I'll just share that was actually a requirement in the at least in the 80s, that the university system, of course, helps build these buildings, and they felt that it was not very cost effective to use or provide air conditioning in buildings so close to the ocean breezes. And so there were rules about that back in the 80s when a bunch of our buildings were built. We're stuck with these buildings, and as you know, housing demand is very high, and so we do our best to work through it. So my suggestion is to bring some fans. Most rooms are going to have 2 windows. I would encourage people to have maybe 1 window with a window fan. I do not endorse any particular fan. I don't know much about them, other than I would suggest if they get a window fan that it's bi-directional, and help a student understand when their room is hot, they want to suck that air out of the room. When the room is at night, when the outside is cooler, they want to bring that air in. It's simple, but it's one of those things that will help students be comfortable. And then the other suggestion is maybe an oscillating tower fan, which are also really helpful. A tower fan just takes up less space, so that's why I encourage those. And again, they're pretty readily available in stores and such. I will say, fans are necessary. Air conditioners are not allowed, and people will really worry about that. We are close to the ocean, and we do have ocean breezes. And even when, it was in the high 80s and in the 90s inland in California, here on the coast, we were still in the low 80s. Like, I don't know that we really got maybe one day 86. So it's warm, but it's not oppressive. And so I know people are worried and, oh, my kid's going to be uncomfortable. Get these fans, help them that way. And really, again, after the Santa Ana winds that usually hit maybe at the end of August or beginning of September, after that, it's really just pretty moderate all in all. I've lived here about 7 years. I almost never, ever use the air conditioning in my apartment. I'm from the East Coast, so I'm sort of used to it as well, but it's just something to think about. This next slide, I guess I've actually really hit upon these. Again, move-in day is over 2 days, the 18th and the 19th. We will have some move-in assistance, in particular on that Friday, just because we have some campus volunteers. But people shouldn't rely on them entirely to help, but we do have some help available. Important to note, especially people driving into campus, if you put in your GPS directions to Cal State Long Beach, they're going to direct you to 1250 Bellflower Boulevard, which is the campus address. The campus has one address, so it's not going to get you to the residence halls. So what I encourage people to do is to put in intersections. So if you put an intersection of Atherton and Merriam Way, that will bring you into the entrance closest to Parkside North and Parkside Village, which makes it easy for that move in. If you put in the intersection of Beach Drive and Bellflower Boulevard, sorry, should be Boulevard on that. It will bring you in right at iHouse, frankly, and real close to the hillside buildings, Los Alamitos, Los Cerritos. You can come in any which direction you come in, but this might make it a little bit easier for you to navigate. I'll also encourage people to download the CSULB app and or the interactive map, or have that on your phones, because it's a great resource. It's very visual. So people who struggle to look at a map, they can say, oh, that building looks like this building, right? Makes it a lot easier to navigate around campus. And then finally, Beachside Village. That one actually does have an address. It's about a mile off campus, 4835 Pacific Coast Highway, and that'll bring you right to that space. So if your student happens to live in Beachside, that will be available to them. When you get here, as I mentioned earlier, the students should report to the residence hall. What I didn't say is we will have their ID at the residence hall. When they check in, we will hand them their ID. That ID is everything. It gets them into their building. It gets them into their suite if they happen to live in a suite. Gets them into their room. It's what they need for dining. It's what they're going to need if when they go to the financial aid office. It's what they're going to need to ride the shuttles. It really is a one card, one stop sort of solution to everything. So students need to think hard about how they're going to hold on to that. Maybe get a good lanyard with a way to connect that ID. They shouldn't poke holes in the ID. Our IDs actually have a little chip in it and a little wire that allow it to be a tap card to get them into the rooms. Again, we have no keys at all, which is great. If a student had a key and they lose a key and someone finds it and figures out who that key belongs to, they have access to your room. We don't want that. So if there's an ID, if a student reports that ID lost or stolen, but generally lost, we will let them, they let us know and we deactivate it immediately. They'll need to get a new ID. There is a cost to get additional ID if they've lost it, but it's minimal, realistically, when you think about the importance of safety. So if your student says, I lost my ID, encourage them to look for it for a few hours. And then if not, come and have their ID deactivated so we can get them set up and we make sure that we maintain that security for the building. Things not to bring. So e-bikes, e-scooters, e-skateboards, or what some people call hoverboards. I think it was about 2014, 2015 when the hoverboards became a thing. And I remember all the newscasts showing Christmas trees catching on fire, right? Because people had plugged in the hoverboards. Unfortunately, that has not yet been resolved. So if you Google e-scooter and fire, you will see very recent situations where there has been fires. The mayor of New York City called a press conference to try to figure out how to resolve this issue. So our fire marshal is really tough. And says, no, we're not allowed to have them in the buildings. It is while they're charging, the type of lithium battery that can get really hot and cause a fire. So those are not permitted. Pre-pandemic, it wasn't much of an issue, but they've come down in price. And so a lot of people now want to bring them. And last year, in particular, we really had a struggle and we had to tell people they had to take them home. And there were lots of people who were upset and they're like, I spent all this money on this e-scooter. They're welcome to have a regular bike. They're welcome to have a regular skateboard, a regular scooter. And those are all good things to do as long as they're man-powered. The other issue is, and again, technically they're illegal on campus. It's hard for us to police that in general on the other parts of campus. But there's just a safety issue. They get up to 15 miles per hour and they're zipping down a sidewalk and they're quiet. And there are people on our campus that might have hearing impairments or visual impairments that are going to be stressed by that. So I really want people to make sure that they don't bring those. If we see you bringing them in on move-in, we're going to tell you to take them home. You don't want to have a student contact issue because of that policy. Refrigerators, we provide a refrigerator, a freezer, and a microwave. It's called a microfridge combination. That is all that students are allowed to have unless they have a approved disability that would require them maybe to have a small refrigerator for medication or something. But if they have that situation, they'd have to go through the Bob Murphy Access Center. The refrigerator microwave combo is great for a lot of reasons. It's better for our older buildings because when the microwave's on, the refrigerator actually turns off for that minute or two while you're popping your popcorn. That helps us not overwhelm our system. Our micro fridges also come with a smoke sensor. So I remind people that, when the smoke detector goes off in your house, you grab a, cookie sheet and you're trying to blow the smoke out into the backyard. When it happens in a residence hall, everyone has to evacuate and they cannot be let back in until the building has been inspected by university police or the fire department. It's really a big ordeal. So really important that people not bring their own microwave. And again, the refrigerator would only be through like our Bob Murphy access center. Toasters, toaster ovens, anything that can smoke is what we want to say students cannot bring for the same exact reasons. Air fryers are a great example. I know that's become more popular, but they can get really hot and they can cause smoke. Anything that has a hot plate, an exposed hot plate. So they used to make these little, coffee warmers that you could put on your desk with a little hot plate. Those aren't allowed. Anything that could potentially catch fire or burn. I tell people the only exposed hot device that someone can have is probably a traditional iron because there's really no other real option. But I'm gonna take a wild guess, and most of our students don't really iron or don't want to iron. I know I don't, so it's generally not much of an issue. Air conditioner and space heaters, we've already talked about that. Some buildings are air conditioned. They come at a higher premium. I know lots of people wanted to be in them, but they aren't available in the buildings that aren't. Space heaters, of course, same reason they get hot. Wall tapestries and curtains. So sometimes people moms come in and like, oh, I want to make this feel warmer. We have window blinds and we want to put up some curtains that match my daughter's, bedspread. Those aren't allowed. Our fire marshal does do inspections throughout the year. We also do inspections to try to make sure that we're addressing things before the fire marshal comes through. But curtains are not allowed and wall tapestries are not allowed. Wall tapestries are generally, they're like great big sheets that might be tie-dye. They might have a mandala on it. They're really awesome. They bring lots of color. But the fire marshal will not allow them because if that would potentially catch on fire, it could fall on top of someone. And I'm going to tell you, right at the beginning of the semester, we'll have people who come to campus that sell those. And they're fine. I guess the fire marshal is not going to check someone's apartment off campus, but they do check our area. So don't bring those. Again, it's sort of heartbreaking when we have to tell people, hey, you got to take that home because they are nice, they're beautiful, and they bring a lot of color, but they are a safety concern. And the last one is bed risers. Our beds at our campus all have the ability to move up and down a little bit, and that's fine. But anything in addition to that, no blocks or cinder blocks or anything to make the bed even higher, that's just not allowed also by our fire marshal for safety concerns. Someone asked me the other day, I was doing a presentation for a parent, and they said, after I move my son in, am I done? And the answer is yeah, sort of. There are no really particular activities that are set up for parents. These videos have become sort of our solution to being able to inform parents of some things going on and just about our services and such. But we do have one thing that parents might want to check out with their students. So after moving in, they can check out the Bookstore Bash, which is on the main campus at the bookstore. We work with the beach shops every year to make this a big event. They generally have raffles for prizes and there's discounts for, the beach mom t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And so there's lots of stuff going on outside and inside the bookstore. So we encourage people to check that out before they head home. The other thing to mention is we do provide meals on this day for everyone. So free of charge. There are lots of people who want to take their kid out for a nice dinner at a restaurant. That's fantastic. But if you don't have the time or it's not working out, you can go to the dining hall and they have, simple sandwiches and you can get a soda drink or whatever the case might be. And that's all free from our partners with campus dining. So we encourage people to utilize that if they choose to, all for, that last nice dinner out, but this is another option available to you. So don't hesitate to use that. That's about it that I have in this particular video for tips and tricks. Thank you so much. We really, really look forward to seeing you. in just a few weeks, and welcoming your student and welcoming you to campus and the Beach family. Thanks so much, and have a great day. Be well.